Today we have a very special person. Special because not because who he is, everyone knows who he is, but special because he has taken a big step and changed companies. And we are talking to none other than Pratap Bose. This is his first interview as the global head of design for Mahindra and Mahindra. Pratap, well, congratulations on the new assignment. And clearly, the first question everyone wants to know is what made you shift to Mahindra?
Hi Hormaz, thanks for having me. Of course, now in a new avatar, if I can say that. Um, Hormaz, for a designer and a creative person, it's very important, to stay creative and also, therefore, to challenge the comfort zone. And I think I had a run of 14 great years, at Tata Motors, and Mahindra attracted me because of the sheer range of products that are available to a designer to work on. So like I said, from two-wheelers to three-wheelers to tractors to SUVs. It was very, very tempting to therefore get into that because if you know my past, Hormaz, I started my career as a scooter designer actually in Piaggio. Another great experience that I had. So for me, looking forward, looking ahead, was very important, and I think to challenge my own comfort zone, and have a portfolio of products to work on. There was no better company. So and the other thing, Hormaz, of course, I met, through the process, I met the new leadership team. Again, very exciting, very dynamic, a very, very clear view of the future, which I thought, gelled with where I saw myself going as a designer and as a professional. So, it's a coming together of many things, Hormaz. These things, take time. But when they happen for a reason. So, for me, it was a great, in terms of timing, in terms of my professional place, it was absolutely fantastic.
And it's very interesting. You said, looking at the future. I'm sure as a designer, because in your space, your work starts basically for something that comes out 4 or 5 years later. So was it a clear vision, a long-term plan that you needed to see to, be attracted to take a job like this or any job? And I think that's what designers need to know because it's a long lead business, especially with design. I mean, you start with putting your thoughts and pen on paper today. Finally, when the customer gets it, it's a good couple of years. So is that important? The kind of, let's say, the long-term vision, the fact that there is a solid plans for a pipeline, there is investment going forward.
Yeah, absolutely, Hormaz. I think timing is very, very critical when a designer takes on such a senior role in a company, any company. Timing is important, and in this case, it was absolutely perfect because we are at the start of many new programs and many new initiatives. The things that have already been spoken about and public knowledge. The Born EV, the last mile mobility, the strengthening of the IC portfolio, strengthening and widening actually of the IC portfolio. These are all programs and products which are at the start of their conception. And I think that's when Hormaz, a chief design officer or any designer can have most influence. This is where we are really laying down, the bones of the architectures and the new products which you will see. And I thought the timing was therefore, perfect for someone like me to come on board. Um, and yes, backed with a strong investment plan. I mean, we are, in a business. Design plays a very important role in any business, so it's very important to understand what that business does, what the future prospects for that business are. I can't stress enough, Hormaz, for designers to really understand any business that they're working in, how it makes money, how it progresses, because, ultimately, it's the products which satisfy the customer needs, which pays for design in any company and pays for investment in the future. And again, there was a very clear roadmap that I was that was shared with me, and which is now again in the public domain. And so in terms of timing, in terms of the business plan going forward, again, a coming together of opportunities.
No, you talked about the timing, and as we see, in fact, even we did a cover story, Mahindra Reborn. Clearly, there's a new leadership, a new vision going forward, and obviously you joined to be a part of this in so-called Mahindra. I would say 3.0, 2.0 came when the Scorpio was there. Uh,
Yeah.
how important is defining the brand? And I think that's where designers also play a key role in terms of the brand consistency, in terms of the brand look. Is this one of the big challenges to kind of harmonize the entire portfolio with one very sharp, distinct brand identity? But before that, one even needs to know what the brand stands for, and kind of. So, is that something you need to you would like to get into immediately? Is that understanding, let's say, the brand boundaries and what the building blocks are of the brand?
Yeah, of course. I think Hormaz, as you know, I've, like any other, ordinary customer or consumer or observer, have only seen the company and the brands from the outside. And I now am in that discovery phase of what the company and the brand stand for as defined from the inside. And it's when the outside perception and the internal, let's say, uh, idea of what that brand stands for, when those two actually match, is when you have the strongest brands. What you are trying to say as a company and what the customer perceives of you, that matching is very, very important. And I think, like I said, I've seen and perceived the brand and the company, or the individual brands, the product brands and the company from the outside. I'm now in that discovery phase of from the inside. And if there's anything I can do to help match the outside view and the internal view, that's my job and my role with the rest of the senior management, to put that together. But I think, if one thing I can say is that the perception is very, very strong. There's a lot of goodwill out there. It's a very formidable, brand in that sense, Mahindra and the individual products. So again, any sharpening, any fine tuning, I would love to do. The other thing is also, the role of design in defining the brands.
Exactly.
This is again very, very important. Do you have one design language that spreads across the products? Do you have something which is more fine-tuned to the individual product portfolio? That's something I would like to, sort of understand and propose, to the management team going forward.
Right. So obviously, I think that's going to be quite exciting. Probably, is it fair to say, what's the first thing on your agenda? Now that you've just recently joined, a couple of weeks already with the company, I'm sure you must have met a lot of the teams. What is your first goal at, would you like to start off with? Is it, as you rightly said, propose certain directions in which brands, either individual or as a whole, need to go? Maybe it could be all Mahindra products need to have a certain upright A-pillar or a very high bonnet or a particular grille. And then individual products have their own kind of, let's say, brand attributes. So just wanted to understand, what is your first really task or job at hand now?
So, Ormas, as you know, this is the first interview. I've just joined. I'm really in that discovery mode. Now, when I look at the across the auto and farm businesses, there's so many individual brands within that. So LCVs, the tractor business, two-wheelers at Peugeot. So each one has a story, and I think for me it is to discover what that story is and get that out. But I think your question, if I understood, is more specific to auto, perhaps, and there again, I think, bringing a real design homogeneity may or may not be the right thing to do. Each brand and each product line, I think, has a personality. But yes, I would definitely look to bring a sort of a Mahindra look and feel to the products. I think that's very important. Hormaz, as you transition through the portfolio, So someone may start with a small product, from one of the smaller products, or XUV 300, and then transition to a 700 at some point. They should feel that they are transitioning within a Mahindra range of products. So and design goes always a lot deeper, Hormaz. So there's something which I think should be common through those products, but some things can be individual to those products. So it's like any family. You have a group of family members, and everyone has a certain character. I think it's very important to understand and bring out that character, but they're all part of a family. So I'll give you a very simple example, Hormaz, in terms of ergonomics or how you interact with the car. It shouldn't matter if you're in a XUV 300 or you're going to a XUV 700. Some of the basic architectural things in the cabin, for example, should be in the same place and have the same look, feel, all of that. So for example, you want to switch the headlights on, or you want to switch on the wipers, they should be in a Mahindra location within the car. And I think that depth, when you start getting into, is when people start connecting with the brand. So I would love to, therefore, get into that detail. Brands are always also about the softer aspects, the perception of how you feel in one of our products. And I think those are areas where I would love to, get into.
Right. And okay, one question which a lot of your fans, viewers, everyone would want to know: when can we see Pratap Bose's influence? Which is the first products we can see Pratap Bose's influence on a Mahindra product?
So, Hormaz, there's always a temptation that when someone joins a company, you want to sort of stop or cut or change everything. And I think that's not always needed. There are many, many, great products on the way. And like I said, I don't want to sort of try and stop or change any of those, because there's a reason, there's a rationale behind. If I can, of course, if I can add a touch here and there, to improve the product offering, of course I will do that. But I think the real products take anywhere between 2 to 3 years from concept to delivery. I would love to therefore start, like I said, we are at the start of many, many new programs, which you guys have also spoken about. That story you did. That story was very informative for me, by the way. And but Hormuz, I think that's the real opportunity for me and the team to have that influence, and people will start feeling that as we sort of start bringing out those products.
We can say, let's say, from grounds up, a full product. Let's say it would take you at least 3 years to get to market where you start off now. I mean, that's normal product cycle development time. So people will have to wait for the first full-blown Pratap Bose Mahindra SUV will take about 3 years or so. I mean, one can assume that.
Yeah, but along the way, like I said, Hormaz, we have a whole range of products already out there. We have a couple of products coming, soon as well. And there, I think, so there's something called range maintenance. When you have a range of products out there, you got to maintain and refresh that range. So you'll start seeing
what you're saying, life cycle measures.
Absolutely. So life cycle management of the current products is something, people will see in a much, much shorter term as well.
And, I just want to talk about this whole thing in today's times, which are quite tough. Resources are scarce. Design as a way of even saving costs. Obviously, as a designer, you'd want the complete creative freedom, whatever, 600-inch wheels, the wheels as bigger they go, but obviously you have to balance it out. Point is, this whole cost aspect that designers bring or understand, how important is that today? Because I'm sure with design, you can even save a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think more than cost cutting, it's actually cost prevention. That's very important. If in design itself you can start, like I said, Hormaz, many designers don't understand that design is a business or is part of the business. And while the customer shouldn't feel that you've cut costs or cut corners, with clever design and intelligent use of design, you can actually prevent spending a lot of money on areas which the customer sees no benefit. So this hierarchy of how and what you spend on a product, Hormaz, is an art in itself. And my personal philosophy is that you should spend the money where the customer really gets the value for that. Um, and prioritizing that, therefore, becomes an important part of what we do in design, product planning, marketing. So it's an integrated across the piece. And again, here I look forward to working with my colleagues in marketing and product planning to ensure that what we build into the product really appeals to the customer and makes sense to the customer. Because look, ultimately, Hormaz, our salary is paid by the customer. And if he or she doesn't see value in what we are providing to them, then the business runs into trouble. So it's very, very important. It's a great question, actually. And if any sort of designers are watching this, please look at areas in which the customer finds most value and spend the money in design there, and not in areas that they don't feel or perceive or appreciate.
So, Pratap, I want to stick with you on this, where the customer finds value. I think going forward, we found that the battle has moved fundamentally into the cabins right now. It's all about infotainment systems, big screens, touch and feel. Unfortunately, not so much also the engines. I mean, the drive is very important, but just in this day and age when people, are so, let's say, digitally savvy, or this is so influenced by their phone, they just want all that. So, going forward, just to get your sense, I mean, do you find that, let's say, as a focus, money needs to be spent in this area, let's say, more than whether you have, let's say, a liner in the boot, which doesn't make any difference at all to the customer?
Yeah, Hormaz, I think, and I've seen this already in the company. They have a very sharp sense of this prioritization, and I was very impressed already in my early meetings with the planning teams and engineering teams. They have a very, very good idea of what the customer will perceive, appreciate, and then pay for. And that seems to be very well sorted out at Mahindra. And here again, Hormaz, you mentioned screens. Look, I don't think any one of us can live a life disconnected anymore. Especially when you're remote working, and lots of things are actually remote. Being connected while you're already, in motion, driving, or whatever it is, being connected to the car or being connected to the world outside the car, I think both become important. And again, from what I've seen so far in the few days I've been here, the team's done an incredible job in especially in the infotainment area of the car, which again, as you mentioned, gets huge amount of the customer spend share. And we've seen that, cars which provide connected features are, that's becoming as important as or so in some cases more important than even power and power to weight and torque and all of that. Those are taken for granted. And again, I think Velu and team have done an incredible job on powertrain.
You know the joke. I think the joke has always been in the industry, which I'll share, that Tata design was great, the engines were weak. Mahindra, the engines were stronger. So I think I'm sure now having strong design with strong engines, it completes the package.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Hormaz, people appreciate this perfect balance of performance and design. And if we can get that right, I think there's definitely customers out there for a company like us. And sticking to what we are doing and what we want to do, authentic, true blue, SUV experiences. I think if we get these two right, in the right balance with the right priority, the sky's the limit, really.
I want to stick to the authentic True Blue SUVs, which, even the company has clarified what it really stands for. And I'm sure that's one of the things you've got into as well. It's got to have a certain presence. How do you feel about that? I mean, is that something, as a designer, you're frankly going to be limited in the auto space? I'm not talking about tractors, to SUVs. There are going to be no sedans, no hatchbacks. that sort of thing. So as a designer, how do you feel about that? That, you know, it's just going to be SUVs you're going to be focusing on, and a certain kind of SUV with a certain look as well. Does that limit you as a designer in some way?
See, Hormuz, the automotive world is actually full of companies which are full SUV, full range SUV manufacturers, and
Like Land, like like Land Rover.
for example, yeah, and and there are many examples worldwide, and including in China as well. SUVs are here to stay, Hormuz. I think in every size and every price point, I think SUVs really work. They've resonated everywhere in the world. For example, if you look at the station wagon or a minivan, both of these body types or product types, Hormuz, have pretty much disappeared from the automotive world in one generation. In 6 or 7 years, minivans and estates or wagons, as we know them, have completely disappeared. But having said that, Hormuz, don't forget that the last mile mobility business, the born EV business, these may spring products that may or may not be SUVs. I haven't got into these yet, but I can imagine that in last mile mobility, there'll be a lot of interesting mobility products for us to design.
It could be.
Again, staying in the auto business. And SUVs, again, the range and type of SUVs, the Bolero, the Scorpio, so body on frame, the Thar, of course. So there's a body on frame, and then there's the monocoque. Two very distinct worlds within SUVs with distinct customer expectations and customer types. I think it's very, very interesting. I'm really looking forward to getting my what should I say, hands or teeth or pens into these.
Right. No, but it's interesting you talked about monocoque and body on frame. Quite frankly, with Tata Motors, I think you missed the last of the body on frames, though Hexa was there. But I just want to understand, between monocoque and body on frame, are each one different? Is it one more trickier because some have packaging constraints? And these body on frame is a strategy which Mahindra has pursued and been very successful with a product like the Thar and the Scorpio. So, I think the iconic products are body on frame. Even Bolero is. So obviously body on frame has a certain significance in Mahindra and Mahindra. As a designer, is that easy? Is it more challenging vis-a-vis the usual monocoque designs which you've done?
Not usually, Hormuz. I personally haven't worked on too many BOF products, as you know, but usually they're slightly taller. Handling can be a challenge in most cases. But again, I think Velu and team, with the example of the Thar, how they've sorted the ride and handling and that balance, I think it can therefore be done. And the characteristics of BOF architecture and products therefore is quite unique and different. And again, if you want to be authentic, if you want to be unique, if you want to stand for something that no one else is doing, I think it's a great set of products to have. And Hormuz, again, coming back to this full range, if you provide a range of SUVs, both body on frame and monocoque, then the customer chooses. And I think that choice, to be able to give the customer that choice, is something what a company should do.
Right. And moving again from monocoque body on frame to born electric, that's really the future, and I think that's very, very exciting. Clearly, from what I understand, what the company has announced, they're going to have a dedicated skateboard. So I'm sure from your point of view, it's like you're starting from a clean slate and very exciting. So just wanted to get your sense, do pure electric skateboards, what sort of architectural freedom do they give you? Clearly, you worked on products like the Nexon EV and all, which, are not, let's say, they are stopgap kind of EVs because they have based on a IC platform. So born electric platforms or skateboards, how do you look at that from a design point of view, and what are the opportunities they offer?
I think, Hormuz, absolutely, the current, let's say, electrified products, that you see around the world, and especially in India, they all started their life as a IC, platform. IC architecture. So they are absolutely optimized to have an engine in front. Let me put it, simply. An engine in front, the crash performance, etc. Everything therefore depends on that fundamental, truth, which is that this is a internal combustion engine architecture and product. Of course, the transition that we are facing, we're going through in India means we electrify an inherent IC architecture product into an electric offering. And I think that's a very, very good route, by the way, to go through in a transitory phase in India where EVs are trying to find a space of their own. And, if anything, the past 18 to 24 months have shown that there's a huge potential for EVs. But Hormaz, I don't think that is therefore enough for the next wave of personal and public mobility. And I think Mahindra is being extremely forward-looking, very, very dynamic in moving into that space. And born EVs will be the way to go. Whenever the tipping point comes that EVs start overtaking ICs, I think the company will be in perfect position to take advantage of that new reality. And like you said, Hormaz, in terms of architecture, in terms of packaging, if I can say, for the same external footprint between a born EV and let's say an IC, the same external footprint, you can actually in the cabin create a lot more space within that car. So you can create a cabin space which is a couple of segments higher. So if you're looking at a 4-meter, let's say external, footprint, the cabin can be of a 4.2-meter car. That's the kind of space you can get, which is phenomenal because I think it ticks a lot of boxes. You occupy less road space, so it's easier to park, etc., etc. But inside the car, you're getting the benefit of a segment above. And that's, I think, the key thing of what born EV can do, apart from the other, optimizations, the way you package the batteries within the architecture, it becomes a part of the crash structure or part of the torsional stiffness. These are things you can do in a born EV, which you perhaps will struggle with in a IC.
So can one say that obviously, I'm sure when you were deciding to join Mahindra, I'm sure it must have given you a little teaser of what was in the pipeline. Does something like a electric skateboard really excite you? Because that is the future. And, you've got a lot of design freedom. As you rightly said, you don't have to have the engine in the front. You're not constrained by a drive line, propeller shaft, or whatever. There's a lot of flexibility. So as a designer, is it exciting? Is it easier or is it more of a challenge, looking at designing a absolutely ground up EV?
See, I think, Hormaz, in terms of a design challenge, believe me, designing a paperclip can be harder than designing a car. I can tell you this, because so there's no design challenge is actually harder or easier, but it's the opportunity. So the design opportunity in a born EV, because that's where the world is going to go. That's where we are all headed. The design opportunity is incredible. There's a new way, therefore, when you liberate space inside a car, there's a new way you can think of, the interactions that people have within the car, the way they sit, the seating layouts, the height at which they sit. That flexibility is something I think which any designer would love to grab with both hands. And you're absolutely right. In whatever limited discussions that I could have with the company before joining, the born EV element was actually the most exciting for me.
Right.
And then, of course, it was totally backed up by your story.
Well, I'm glad our stories at least get people in the industry or within the company also get to know something. But anyway, just last question, Pratap, honestly, and moving on is what's interesting is the location. You have for the first time established a design studio in UK in the Coventry area. Clearly, obviously, this seems to be where the center of gravity is for global design. Not so much Italy anymore, it's also moved here, but generally for our kind of car, compact car, small car. So, how important was it, and was this a sort of precondition that you wanted to have something, a footprint in Europe, which was absolutely crucial for for your going forward with Mahindra?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Hormuz, the capacity, capability are things you always look at in any team, and going forward with the sort of range of products that we've announced, we needed both. We needed capacity expansion and capability, right? Both of them, because the customer expectation now in India is no less than anywhere in the world. Now, of course, having lived and worked here for the last, a decade and a half, Coventry is seeing a or Coventry and the Midlands area is seeing a massive revival of design. This is borne out by the fact that, of course, there's Jaguar Land Rover, there's the Tata Studio, Geely moved here very recently.
So you've got specialist car manufacturers as well, Aston, McLaren, all these guys. Yeah.
Exactly. I was just coming to that. Aston, McLaren, now some new startups, EV startups and EV manufacturers are also moving into the area. So the design scene, the design ecosystem has really exploded. And Hormuz, coming back to the capacity and capability, if we need, a clay model to be built, if we need a show car, we need a prototype, we need designers, it's very, very easy to tap into this ecosystem, which is already here. And, I find that, the talent is second to none. You have the Royal College in London, you have Coventry University at our doorstep, and of course, then access to the rest of Europe as well. So, the UK and the Midlands and this Coventry area has really been a fantastic seen a fantastic revival in automotive design and automotive engineering, and both go hand in hand, as you know. But yeah, it was a perfect sort of choice and location for us.
And Pratap, obviously, there's one interesting part of this talking about the design resource in Europe and the UK. There's Pininfarina, of course.
Yeah.
Any discussions yet? I mean, how do you see Pininfarina working with Mahindra? Would it be typically as another outsourced supplier giving certain services, which it does for other automotive companies? How do you foresee the kind of arrangement with Mahindra and Pininfarina? We have seen some of Pininfarina's work in some of the products, but not to a great level. Do you think this will increase, or do you think with capacity, if your hands are full, you could pass it on to them? What are your thoughts on this? And have you spoken to them so far? Have you connected with them?
So of course, Hormaz, I would have loved to, but I haven't had the chance to catch up. And I'm looking forward to catching up with them and seeing what they do, how they do. There's years and years of experience. Pininfarina is one of the most respected design houses in the world. But how the engagement progresses, I've not yet managed to get into that at the moment.
Right. Okay. So great. So Pratap, I think that's great. Thanks for giving us a good snapshot, and really you look very excited. And I think as a designer, clearly, it's really the long-term future and multiple products, which I'm sure have excited you. And we really all look forward to the first fully designed Pratap Bose Mahindra coming out, and I'm sure that won't be too far away. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot of little tweaks and facelifts and all along the way. So I'm sure you've got your hands full, and wish you all the best. Thanks so much for talking to us.
Hormaz, thank you, and thank you, to your team, and of course all your followers, fans, viewers, readers, listeners. The messages of support that I received, over the last couple of weeks. Has been very, very encouraging, and I'm going to use a lot of that energy to push forward now.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks.